Working with Arsenal has been fantastic. I mean, we've been engaged with them for nearly a year now. Took a little while to soak and for the first deal to hit, but we're running 32K MRR with them now in under a year, and a lot of promise in the pipeline. My name is Jason Robinson. I'm CTO for Integritech. We started the business 7 years ago, launching out of corporate. We've been with Arsenal for coming up on 1 year in February. You guys beat on our door for a couple of years, actually. Miles called on us for 2 years, probably off and on. And I can't remember, there was a competitor also calling kind of at the same time. It wasn't the right time for us, but that's really, you found us doing what you do, doing business development. So we eventually, I won't say caved. We just got to the right point. We prayed over it, thought about it, knew we needed to do something for the growth side. We're engineers, man. We're not salespeople. We're super geeks, is what I tell people. That's what we're good at. So came along, and we're glad we did. So we partnered up with Miles. Actually, he's our BDR guy up there. I would say you guys were well versed in any of the conversations we had about the MSP industry specifically, which was very important to know what we're selling, right? Having salespeople that can represent the industry and what we do, knowing the moving parts and pieces, speaking the lingo, relating to us on the backside, on the tech side, is also relating to the front end, to the sales side and the people out there that you're, cold calling on and all that. So that kind of stuck out, like you guys knew your stuff. And so that was good. And then you're St. Louis, not too far away from where we're at, right? So proximity didn't play a big part in it, but it's like, hey, I mean, Midwest kind of, guys, so that helped, somewhat. And then everybody we talked to was friendly and, really answered a lot of our questions, as far as anything we asked. And man, the onboarding part, when we did commit to like, hey, we're going to do this thing, it's my baby, right? So me and my business partner built this, and I built the brand, the name, and all the stuff, did all of the marketing materials that we did have, and, graphic design and all that. So I really played that slow to hand that over. And Joe and the team and everybody there was really helpful with like the way they received that. I could tell they cared, right? I could tell that it was going to be a partnership, and it wasn't just, okay, give me all your stuff, I'm going to go plow ground. And my biggest fear was like protecting the brand of Integritech. And when you're calling and beating on doors, so to speak, that it's not damaging who we are in the market locally. And so all the conversations we had kind of set that at ease. And it took, about 6 weeks of transit, I say transition, a prep, like from the time we started, like, hey, we're going to do this to go, there was a couple meetings. We did some, I call them warm and fuzzies, we did those kind of things and had those conversations. And then we kind of started off in February where we had Miles calling for us. And it's like, okay, now, that was when the journey began. Like, what's this going to look like? And my business partner and I, usually anything we venture into, it's like, okay, we're going to commit 12 months to something, and we're going to invest in this. And it's an investment. And so far it's been fantastic. Things are great. Miles is truly an extension of our organization. I talk to the guy regularly. I flip stuff to him that comes my way because I don't have the time, or not really the greatest, resource to be doing that. I can allocate my stuff, my time to better things in the business or on the business. And yeah, I mean, we've closed 3 accounts now, so that's been really good. And we've the pipeline piece and the nurturing part, the ability, the transparency. That's another thing. You talk about why you pick a guy, like the ability to see the calls and do all the things. I bird dogged that for quite a while when we first started to see kind of what that was going like. And, it was, it kind of set me at ease. The part of it too is like, it made me realize even further, like I'm not the guy to do this, because Miles, you guys get those objections and those gatekeepers and you can work through those things. That ain't my personality. And so it's so cool to still manage the protection of who we are, what we do, know all those things, and still be able to navigate those waters when they can get a little choppy. When a guy like me is like rowing to shore and bailing, like no problem. And Miles can handle all that really well. But yeah, things are great. We've got a great pipeline. Miles and I've been talking coming into 25 that we've built over the last year. Business is cyclical. We expect some good growth in 25 for sure. And then potentially, what looks beyond that is additional territories and kind of other things we've been considering too. Yeah, so probably month 4 or 5 with Miles, I was kind of just having a conversation, and I was like, man, when people get hooked up with you, and we hadn't even closed the deal at the time yet, but just the at bats is what I'll call them. Like we were getting at bats, and I call it like autopilot. You guys are like business development on autopilot, and I don't know if a business gets synced up and things are working well. I don't know how they quit you really. The investment is sound. It makes sense. We look like we have a really bright future with everything we got going with you guys. We hope to continue that. And yeah, I mean, the partnership is tight. Miles communicates well. And maybe he's a different business development rep than others, but I only know him, and the experience I have through him has been fantastic. And so he keeps our best interests in mind. He fills me in on what's going on. He'll pick up the phone and call me, on my cell phone. Even at times, it's like, hey, this is something we need to look at or whatever. And we got some freedom with one another in those communications, and he, is able to work the system for us really well. And so we really, as far as sales go, Integritech doesn't have any other sales arm going. I mean, Arsenal is kind of it for us at our size. We committed to this instead of hiring somebody basically, and so it's that first step. But it scales. That's the thing I found out. Like I don't see a problem with it scaling into whatever we want to do. Yeah, I mean, you're focused on the industry, right? MSP. Like Miles talks the talk, walks the walk, right? He understands what's going on. He understands the cycle of business. He understands some of the gatekeeper questions and objections and how to get past those, how to get a foot in the door that may wedge open and kind of work from there. Just the at-bats and opportunities. I mean, prior to you guys, it's like, for us to have a half a dozen sit downs with new customers in a year was kind of a thing, right? And I mean, last year, I think Miles got me in front of like 30, 40 people, which was really good for year one, if you ask me. And I told my business partner at one point, I'm like, we were 7 months in and hadn't closed anything. I'm like, at some point it's me. The problem's not them guys. Like at some point the problem's the sales guy, and I'm not a sales guy. I'm a computer geek. So maybe it's me. And so we considered that too, right? Through part of it. I'm passionate and all those things, but still, some of that stuff may not resonate. But you guys have that focus in the industry, the nurturing aspect. I mean, looking in Salesforce and seeing the notes you keep, seeing the nurturing information, all the information that's gathered, right? It's a story that he builds to understand the account, how to approach it. Impressive, and then just the commitment to the brand and protecting and buying into who we are and not being this, nobody would know that Miles is not Integritech. I've gone to multiple meetings, sat down, and they're like, "Are you Miles?" I'm like, "No, I'm Jason. Miles is my guy. He looks like us and feels like us, and he comes off like us. So he's very much a part of us, and so that's important, to be that way for us. And so, yeah, I mean, those are what I see as like the strengths for where you guys position yourselves, and you have no fear. Like, I mean, you'll call anybody, talk to anybody, work on anything, and the aggressive approach is it's not aggressive in a bad way, right? The aggression that you guys have towards growth of business is a tenacity that I don't possess when it comes to that. If you put me on a technical problem, I'm there, like I'm at that level. But sales is what you do, and you do for sales what I do for technology, and it really couples together well for what we do as a culture and business. So that's been the best part of the partnership, is like how we kind of come together and kind of weave together in that. And it's a real good strength between the two of us, I think. I did. So, I mean, a long time ago, it's like I never would have thought. Like I was the guy at corporate that got cold called all the time. I bought equipment at the enterprise and had a millions of dollar budget, and we got beat door down all the time, and we had preferred vendors and all these things. So I really came into the MSP space, launching the business, thinking, I've lived here my whole life in the area. Granted, I was in corporate and wasn't really tied to small business much, but thought, hometown guy, do okay. Knows a lot about technology. We're super blessed there. It's humbling, just our pedigree and pathway and how we landed where we're at with the people we have. I mean, we got 12 dudes now, and between four of us, we got 53 years of Fortune 100 IT. So unique to a shop like us in the area. I'm like, okay, cool, unique position, all that. But if they don't know you're here, how you gonna sell? And that's really what we started seeing, is like, man, we struggled really in that cycle early on. And how do we business this thing, right? I mean, I can tech the crap out of it. I can't business any of it. I had a hard time with it. So yeah, the cold call side, definitely not dead. I mean, it's something that I think when approached right, like you guys do, you win. I mean, that's how you get the name out there. People don't even know who we are. I mean, Miles will call people and hear of us, and then it's like, yeah, I've been looking for somebody like you. Let's set up a meeting or whatever. Our area is really growing a lot too, which helps. But yeah, I mean, it's definitely something that I thought it's like email. I'm not a big email person either. I delete a lot of that stuff and calls the same way. But I mean, it's a numbers thing too. You guys are putting out numbers that produces. That's something again for time and allocation and resources and stuff. It makes sense for you guys to do. Yeah, I mean, Miles. I mean, I say Miles is a stud, right? I mean, we work pretty tight. We call each other regularly. He'll ping me on things. The first deal we won, I was on vacation, and he calls me on my cell. He's like, "Hey, this came up, and I think this is a good one. So, you want to, take a stroke at it?" I'm like, "Yeah, set me up, and I'll pop off a day of vacation, run down there, and take care of my staying local." And so I set up a meeting, and that ended up being our first deal. That was like 9, 10 months into the relationship, something like that, or 8 months into the relationship, something like that, by the time that deal ended. But and I mean, it was actually a pretty quick close. Like it's that whole, he identified it, he had the sensitivity to it because he knows the industry, and was able to identify those things and call it out, pull me in, and get us engaged to where we ended up closing the deal in like a month, 6 weeks, something like that. It was a huge relief, man. I mean, from when we got the call on that, I mean, I literally teared up in front of the guys here, like, man, it was emotional. It's like, it was, and the size of the deal too. Something like it was basically, it met the largest customer we had. Like it doubled that top shelf customer we had in the number one slot. This is that size of a client that he brought in. And it made a huge impact for our business. And since then we've closed two more deals, but that was just like a big breath, like, okay, it's one of those things, like it's an investment and it paid off and the system works and that's proof, and those kind of things. So we walked through those conversations, carried that through to signature, got it sent off to you guys, and then it's attitude of get more. Let's go do more. This is awesome. And Miles is, he's tenacious about that stuff. He stays all over it. He's not resting on anything. I know that. He's up there working his tail off for us, and I love it. Yeah, we've closed three accounts at about 32K a month is where we're at right now. That first deal was 17 of that. And that was a monster, right? I mean, for us and the business and the size we were, that was right there with the top customer we had. And we've had that customer for ever since day two, turn the key in the office. We grew them from, I mean, I think it was like 800 MRR a month into that range of north of 16, 17, monthly with them because they've grown their business immensely. This is one that, opportunity was there. Miles identified it, pulled me in. We got a couple guys on it. We met a few times, and we're learning on our side. And I've actually asked Miles, like, feedback on how can I be better? Because you're setting up the sale, and I'm going down there trying to close it. Are there tips and tricks you have for me and things that we do? And I'll coordinate with him, communication, so we're not stepping on each other, those kind of things. Really great relationship. But yeah, we've pulled in 32 through you guys, and a few have come along since that are not related to you guys that have just found us, right? Or that we've gone out and found on our own through relationships and things. They're normal, like things that happen to you, but intentional stuff you guys are doing. You've brought in 32K a month, thereabouts, which is phenomenal. Yeah, the pipeline, I feel like it's super healthy, like at what he's working on for us. And I know he's focusing on things that we've brought to him. And then now, and something, and I've done a couple video like referral calls with other folks with you guys. The thing that's been really good too is when people enter a relationship with you guys, it's about efficiency, and there's an investment. You want to make sure you get the most out of it, all that, right? It's the hits. Like when you sit down in front of a customer, it's like, this is a good fit. Of the 40-ish or more kind of meetings I had in 2024, I can say maybe three of them were duds, where I'd walk in and be like, hey, no, within 5 minutes, 10 minutes, it's probably ain't gonna work. Other than that, a lot of them were proposal worthy conversations or different things, right? So that percentage, it's a good use of your time to go meet those people. They're setting you up with the right people. And I think that year as it went on, Miles understood more of who we are, what we're capable of, some of the things he can kind of, talk about to get us those opportunities. And we're looking at there's a different scale of client now that we're kind of chasing too, with some of the things we've had these wins on. We get to kind of look up further and see kind of where that that ceiling keeps moving, if you will, kind of a deal for growth. I mean, we really didn't have a sales, entity to speak of. I mean, we were technical. We took care of customers. We edged out either the revenue to kind of keep things going, but that was where we kind of had that moment in business where it's like, okay, and this kind of was a shock. My business partner, he's like, we left corporate to start a help desk job. And we ran entire organizations at corporate, multi-million dollar budgets. And the help desk was a piece of somebody else's department. And he's like, we left corporate to go start a help desk, and we're the ones making, helping the tickets. And I mean, we were in the operational side. He's like, that's what we've done. Like, we have to either decide, have we created a job or have we created a business? So what are we doing? And so that was when we buckled down to make an investment in growth. And that's when you guys, it's like, okay, we're going to do this thing. It was one of those milestone moments in business, right? There's a lot of them as you go, but that was one where we just kind of had, okay, it's get busy or die trying kind of thing. Let's make this thing happen, and we did. And so for us, as far as percentage, I looked, you guys have netted about 20% of what our revenue is right now, bringing stuff in from the past year. So we've had 20% MRR growth over the last year with you guys, and we continue to now take that, invest back. I mean, everything's gone back into the business for investment to keep scaling. But we see now there's a predictability almost with that, and that's good, right? We can almost predict the growth based on the work you guys put in for what we expect to see for sales and that top line side of things, for opportunity and other stuff. And then it does kind of, what I've seen, finally, things are starting to snowball. Like they say, when that ball gets bigger and it rolls around, it's, every time it cycles, every turn, it gets bigger and bigger. Yeah, so that was the one that Miles called me on cell phone. I was on vacation, local, just staycation kind of thing. He's like, hey, this is a situation. He gave me the skinny. And you guys know, right? He's like, hey, they had a data loss event with their existing provider. They're not happy. They expressed it in the call. They're open for bids right now, and they're closing bids, soon, that kind of thing, right? All these things are like flags. Is like, okay, if you're doing a bidding process at all, you're a business I want to talk to because you got a budget, right? That's good. The fact that you have problems with who you have means you want to make a change. Let's talk. All those things, right? In that conversation, he triggered on, called me because it was worthy of this needs to happen. I was like, all right, set up a meeting. So I went down and met with them, found out they had an event where they lost some data, existing provider, and the existing provider on top of that has recently been merged, and they've suffered some resources in the area, and it's also suffered services. These are things that also I feed back, and he understands local market with, because we've had a couple of competitors get bought in the past couple of years, and that's kind of changed the landscape. And he keys on that stuff, and I kind of inform him to let him know, hey, if you hear this, this is this, and works real well. But we got an opportunity to sit down with leadership. We had a first round of conversation. It was 90 users, 5 locations locally where we're at in the region. Medical lined up really well with, like, man, this is a legit sink your teeth in, small enterprisey kind of stuff, and decent user base, good size user base. Really, technology wasn't junk. They knew they needed to invest in certain things. They have a budget plan for those things. Like, I mean, it was just a good conversation. So we met with them, we came back, we gave them numbers. There was a little bit of back and forth as far as, clarity on some things, which is expected. We took them, a thing of cookies, just a gourmet drop in kind of, hey, the personal touch kind of stuff that I appreciated whenever I was at corporate, things that we try to reciprocate now on the sales side to stand out. It's, to me, anybody can fix your computer problems. At the end of the day, the person buying my services probably can't delineate my expertise from somebody else. At the end of the day, if it works and they click the button and the thing happens, they're probably okay. I try to, relationship wise, kind of excel in that. Now, technically, I think we excel beyond too, and that proves out over time, but really hard to tell courting a relationship, right? So we, did the dance, had the conversation back and forth a few times. They had a couple questions, and really it was a pretty short deal. It was like 4 to 6 weeks. They made their call, made the decision, called us up and said, we're going with you guys. And so that was a big one, man. Like I say, that 17K, that was just like, clouds part and sun shining, everything's great. Miles talked to him and shared a moment. Almost, it's I kind of get emotional just thinking about it. Like that was a huge turning point for us with you guys, to where it's pay dirt and it's time to really hit it. And so in he doesn't rest on it, right? It was a big deal. It was great. But it's something that we've shown, hey, we're capable. We've got the skills. We've come in the door and they have loved us. We've been on board with them for several months now, and it's night and day from what they had, and they never knew we existed, right? How many more of those are out there? Miles is going to find them, right? And that's what it's all about. So it's transformative for the business. It 100% is. So that one closed quick, comparatively speaking to everything else, because like we had been working so many deals for so many months, and then this one pops up and then closes right out, like within just a short span. And I was super thrilled with it. And so we learned a little bit about our process in that on the relationship side and how we propose and, kind of material wise and some of the things that we go back and forth. I don't want to just be me all the time. I brought in my business partner and then one of our SMEs and, different things like that, attacking it from different angles. But so far, they've met most of our staff. We tend to them, as you can imagine, very well, white glove. They love it, and things are great. And they're looking at more project work. They're looking at, they don't bat an eye. They even had us like when the other service provider was leaving, they were pulling responsibility out, saying they had agreements in place to replace like facilities and battery packs and different things. They're like sick of dealing with them. Like our first at bat, like for a technical stroke, was to go replace the batteries and do things in their computer room that they couldn't trust these other people to get done because they did an attempted outage and failed, rolled it back, and then they called us and said, "Rain on it. I'm done with these dudes. Come fix this." So we had, we got things that we got involved with early on to really get our hands in there and show them what we could do capability wise, which really strengthened the start of the relationship because we showed up, we made it happen, and we delivered. And then now that's just been a good set for the runway that we've had so far. And everybody has been, just over the moon, sending emails, accolades about things, leadership and stuff. They're super excited that we're taking care of them. And they have been a referral for, other opportunities since. And that's what we want to do. We want to turn a customer into a champion. And that's our job. So I really, really try face to face, and so does Miles. He'll make extra effort to push for face to face. We're able to leave behind physical materials that typically won't go in the trash. They may get thrown on the corner of the desk. The interaction you have, person to person in a room, is far beyond a cursory look that you get on a Teams meeting. A lot of times it's hard to get people's attention virtually because they can be distracted easily. But if I'm in a conference room with them, I really feel the focus and I can actually convey, things a lot better. And we end up most of the time, the conversation will expand, through storytelling or through history and, different things and experiences that we have that we can share that can relate. He got us in front of a shop in Fort Smith, and it's like, it's a sheet metal shop. Well, I started in a sheet metal shop when I was 14 years old, working for my dad. So it's like I got to go out there and look at the CNC equipment, and just like we just like, man, this was like what I was born. I was born a tradesman. Like that's a lot of connection we created there. They're going through a lot of things business wise, and they're still on radar for us to follow up with. But again, would have never had an opportunity to talk to those people. And the face-to-face stuff is it's so much more valuable to me. You can make an impact that lasts. And in those visits, you leave things that they'll remember you by, which I think you can't do. It gets deleted out of the inbox list for the meeting invite and poof, you're gone. And then, Miles's challenge is following up with, an entry in literally a view on your computer screen versus the big rooted dude that came by and knew a lot about computers that they remember because, I have a presence and I'm a 3D print guy. So I'll leave little trinkets behind, or I'll leave little cards or other little things and knick-knack stuff to usually try to have some kind of a something as a follow-up with. And like I say, a lot of times stories will connect us to, which kind of help as well. And some of that follow-up I'll do, I'll talk to them. I'll say, hey, have you talked to this person? Let's give them a call. I can reach out to them based on this or something, and we'll work together on those things too. Predictable continued growth, for a generic statement, right? I mean, and I see that. We've come to expect that we get, 3 at-bats, 4 at-bats a month, kind of at this point in the pipeline, which is good for us, for what we can handle. I mean, right now I'm small business still, right? I wear a lot of hats, do a lot of things. I do some sales and then do some other, but retooling some things on the operational piece to really help us, scale and prep for some of the things that are coming, I think, in the pipeline there. But really, it's continue to bring us the opportunities, which you've met. You've actually, that's a promise you've kept with us, is getting those chances to sit down and grow that business. And then I think that a lot of the funnel that he's been building over the past year, I think that stuff will close, this year, whenever those cycles come around and those opportunities actually truly open up. You're committed to contract, can't make a change. And then, like, I think it's continuing to be a part of our organization, and even furthermore, like just cementing further into who we are, like, keeping miles on and looking for opportunities to do more, in the future, with you guys too. Don't quit too early, because like you can get to the point, they've got these little memes and stuff on the internet all the time where the guy's digging the hole, right? And the guy digs out the little bar of gold and leaves, and then the other guy's like 50 bars of gold with like 3 more scoops. Like it's very much that. Like we let it soak a year. You have to understand, in business, like for us, it took us 2 years to decide to go with you guys. So if I'm trying to sell a service that has that much of an impact and that much critical, like business is or sales is a huge part, a critical part of our business, IT likewise for others. Are you gonna, if you're a business owner and you put the hat on that says you're just gonna make a call in a week to make a change on something that critical, would you? Probably not. So we respected that in our prospects, that it takes time. And so we gave them that time. And so that's why we committed to 1 year. We weren't sweating really. We knew that if anything happened in the first 6 months, it was going to be luck almost, we figured. And the back half was really where we were hoping to start, getting on base and hitting some good business out. And it ended up, coming true that way. Like I say, that, he's been steady and constant, and that's so important. And the rewards will come. It's farming. He's hunting, and then those seeds get planted, and then it's nurturing, right? And so it handles both sides of it, which is really kind of the best part of it too, because it's new business for us. But when he pulls in these prospects and they're not ready yet, he doesn't just throw them away and discard them. He tracks them, and I see that. So it's awesome. I mean, it's great. It's been good for us. We knew coming into this world, sales, it required a level of sales, right? We had to sell something, because we got called on all the time by salespeople. We had some really great people that sold to us from IBM and other 3-letter companies at the corporate world, enterprise, that we spend a lot of money with. But we like, hey, we got to do sales. So we start out here, and it's me, and then we hire a sales guy. Sales guy works for a year, doesn't close a deal, and nets a salary that's as much as what we paid Arsenal or more, right? And so that kind of dudded out. And I'm like, well, that didn't work. And in the meantime, anything we did get, we saw was, when I got a chance to sit down with somebody, not really him bringing a deal to the table, but just something like a customer talking to another customer, which is typical, we had a higher chance of winning a deal like that, right? Right in the trust of an existing customer. I'm the one doing the talking because I can speak the language, that kind of stuff. And so he ended up moving on, and then we just kind of went for years without having anything sales related, right? And it's really, a lot of that was figuring out operations and figuring out systems and different things within the business to mature to the point where it's like, now that's that decision of, we've created this job, let's make it a business, and let's scale this sucker to where, we're not grinding as much as we have been for years. The Lord's provided, and we're blessed. But boy, I look forward to being on and not in the business as much, and I see that coming now finally. That was 100% my business partner's decision, because I do not know these things. I mean, I'm just like fix problems kind of guy. So he chose the rev share option because he said that will make our salesperson hungry. And I believe he's right. I think that in the case where we go out and look that, we've netted 32K MRR, there's definitely a piece of that goes to our rep. And hopefully, the way Alan put it is like, when Miles saddles up every day, if he's looking at his commissions that are coming in direct from Integritech, hopefully he sees that as more of an incentive to drive harder for us in those things, right? And so I believe in it too. I mean, I think it's one of those things that scales well, right? Like, it's something that if you can get the right person, incentivize them the right way, then why would they ever want to stop? And why would you ever want to stop, right? I think it's a good mix. And so I'm like, when we cut the first check to Miles, Alan's like, awesome. We that he was looking forward to that day for so long, because he knew when we cut that commission check, we had netted new business based on what you guys had done. And it was a win-win. It's, 100% a win-win. We definitely have been tooling well internally, planning for the future with you guys. New territory, sure. Like I'd love to see that happen. It's a timing thing, right? I mean, we're going to pray through things. We're going to think through things. We're going to really, you know, consider it among leadership here as like, what is the greatest step we can take for the benefit of all, in the business and the benefit of our customers, and never to the detriment of services, right? To protect what we do. And so we see new territory possibly. We're continuing to scale up this year. We've got new hires kind of lined up, planned through the year to continue to grow the operations arm of the business. Um, like I say, marketing is a strategy that we're probably going to implement this calendar year as far as trying to get something that's out there. We do a little bit with some existing clients and some prospects with like a newsletter and other things like that, which does, it's an ante, right? It's chip on the table, so to speak. They know maybe who we are because Miles calls and they've got something they've seen in the mailbox that, looks like us. But for the future for us, we're looking, we just completed our kickoff of EOS, as a business, and a lot of that is focused on our growth and things like that. So we love to see in 5 years to be probably 5x our size right now, maybe 8x is kind of what we're thinking, which is aggressive. And to do that, we've got to have a growth arm. Absolutely. Like I say, I've done a couple of customer ref calls with you guys, and we have no problem singing praises. I mean, Miles is a fantastic guy. Everything's been working really well. I do, the way I kind of tell people is just to relate as a small business is like, sure, it's an investment, right? And it is a significant one. But if it costs you something, there's going to be some value to the gain, right? If it's free, there's nothing really to that. Like when you win or you get that, what's the gain from that? So I guess what I try to convey to people is like, be ready for the commitment in it and hold up your end and trust the process. And as you work through that, sure, there's an investment there, but the investment pays off in dividends. Like you can see for what we pay in our MRR, I'm a Southern boy. So I say, when people ask me about Arsenal, I say it's a gravy train with biscuit wheels. Like it's rolling, so, as my buddy at corporate used to say that all the time. And that's where we're at now with you guys. Just for us, like what I feel like we came fairly prepared for was like we had the materials, right? We had the things that we armed Arsenal. How can you sell what you don't know, right? I mean, you know the industry, but you're not selling the industry, you're selling me. How do you know me? So like I feel like we did a pretty decent job, and it was a little bit longer of an onboarding because of this, and it's part of my, handing the baby over, was really educating Miles on who we are, what we do, this is us, and then this is how we're different. So I think those things are important because those are differentiators as to why somebody would pick you / Arsenal, the guy calling from you, versus anybody else out there. And so, be prepared and be open-handed, which is a trust deal, man. And it is. It's like, here's all my numbers, here's all my information, here's all my quoting, here's my brand, all of that. But to me, that's the best way that it works, because if you're close-fisted about anything, then you limit your ability to do your job. Just like if somebody has us do IT and says, well, you can't have that password or this, right? It's kind of that same thing. We correlate a lot of those stories because we're both in the service industry, and there's a lot of parallels there. But it's a commitment. Jump in with both feet, and the water going to be cold for a little while, and that's okay. But just ride it out. And you'll get there is kind of what I tell people. Trust is a big part of it. And that's what we say we're a trusted technology partner. You guys, trusted very much so on the sales side of what we do for sure. We prayed a lot about it too. That was a big part of it, is just seeking wisdom and just really not diving into things and being flip-floppy and, all that kind of stuff. It's really just earnestly seeking his will and what the business should be, right? What is this a good step? And it turned out to be fantastic. And we absolutely look to scale. I told Miles, I'm like, how do you quit you once you get a you? Like once you're there and you're doing your thing and things are cooking, how does one take that and say, oh, I can replace that with this thing? I just don't. It's almost like what we position ourselves in IT. Once you get Integritech in and we're doing all the things, you have a full staff of people doing all this, and it's for the cost of one body, and you've got 11 people and an army, how do you take that and replace that? Likewise with you guys on the business development side, doing what you're doing. I don't see it yet in business. And of course, I'm not a super great business guy, but I don't see how I can go replace what you guys do for better results or cheaper money. I just don't. And so if I look at it in a long-term partnership, I'd love to be 10, 15, 20 million and still be you guys, right? And you guys driving all that for us. I don't see an issue with that. And when that happens and how, be largely up to you guys bringing the stuff to us. But I think we can get there eventually, right? Well, I guess you could say Miles is the conductor of the gravy train with biscuit wheels, right? He's the guy. So love him. He's doing great. Yeah, shout out to him for sure. Got a great relationship with him, great relationship with Arsenal in general. And yeah, tons of promise, lots of revenue opportunity that's still out there, stuff that has not been discovered that I'm sure he'll find, and stuff that we've got identified that we will win. And it's just a matter of time. So appreciate everybody there, Sam and Aaron and Joe and Miles, all you guys. It's been great working with you all, and look forward to what 25's got for us. So thanks, everybody.